sort? Go to sort A. Make sure you tell it what table you use. Now, what good does that do to me? Go back to your edit and take a look at it. This is how you make your stem and leaf. I'm going to give this a title. This is Air Quality of U.S. Cities. This is my stem. This is my leaf. Now, you already have this in order. So watch how nice this is. Look at your two tens. 0, 0. You have a 20. What does this go all the way up until? Just check, just tell me what it goes up until. What's your last entry? 89. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have to have all of those there. Doesn't matter if we're missing one. We have to have them there. Now watch how easy this is. Go to your 20s. Pull out the ones digits. Make sure you line them up. So you have a 0, a 0, a 2, a 5, a 5. Does everybody see where I'm getting this from? If we put this in order in your L1, look how nice it is to pull off your L1.
How do you do this again?
Okay, you're going to put it in your L1. Did you get it in your L1? You're going to go to edit. I'm sorry, stat. Go back to stat. Come down to sort. Now tell it you put this in L1. Second. L1.
Oh, alright. And then...
And enter. And go back to stat. Enter. And you'll edit. Enter. Now you see them in order.
Alright.
Isn't this so much easier to do your stem and leaf?
A lot easier.
A lot easier. So can you pull the 30s off now? Look how nice this is. Make sure that they're lined up. And you're guaranteed not to miss one unless you didn't put it in your L1. But it said 30 entries. So yours should stop at 31. Then do your 40s. And your 50s. Make sure you can do this. Call me over if you can't do it. And then last, make a cage. Pick any set of numbers. Pick 2, 5, 2, 2, whatever you like to do. It doesn't have to be the first, it doesn't have to be the middle, it doesn't have to be the last. Any number. It just tells me when I read this, that's how I read it. If I take the first one, I read this as a 10. However whichever number you want to pull out. Yeah, this is it. How easy is that? Very easy. Okay. Can everybody make a stem and leaf? Everybody good? I didn't ask you to make a dot plot because they annoy me more than they annoy you. Okay. Then I asked you to make a pie chart, a circle graph. As a matter of fact, let's go to exercise 9. Let's use this information in exercise 9. And let's make, we have at home, 620, friend's house, restaurant or bar, 50, else, here, I'm not sure, and 30. Okay, do I have all the parts? I want to make a pie chart. I want to make a circle graph, a pie chart. This is a survey that U.S. adults were asked, where would they be at midnight when the new year arrived? Okay, places to be at midnight. At the stroke of midnight. How should I start my circle graph? my pie chart. Just put those numbers on there. What do we usually see on the pie chart? What kind of numbers do we see? Percent. And how do I get a percent? A percent is a part over whole. Oh, so I got all the parts, but what do I need? The whole thing. I need the whole. So add this up for me. Ten. Thank you. Okay, so to find my percentages, and I don't need an angle unless you like to work with an angle, we just take the part over the whole. Go 3 decimal places. The part over the whole, unless it terminates. So you're going to give me 3 decimal places. Make sure you round. God bless you. And I'm just going to move the decimal. It was this. I'm just going to move it 2 positions to give me a percent. Is that okay with you guys? I'll move it to the percent. This one's tricky. What do I make this in terms of a percent? If I round to my 3rd decimal place, what does this become? 0.05, right? So this becomes 5%. 5.0 or just 5%. Now technically, what should all these percents add up to? They should add up to 100. And we did a lot of rounding. This is an odd amount. So sometimes what happens is it doesn't exactly add up to 100. So let's try it. And it adds up to 100.1, right? Now technically, you should do it so that it adds up to 100. If you forget to do that, not a big deal. I would take one of these and drop one. Like this one was fairly close in my rounding. I might make this 61.3. It should add up to 100 because we rounded an odd amount. Usually when you round an even amount, they kind of work itself out. But an odd amount, I'm not upset if you don't round that, change that.
So on the test tomorrow, if it like comes to that where it's a little bit over 100 like that, you want us to just change one of them?
If you like to, if you don't, it won't affect me there. As long as you realize that sometimes when we do this, the rounding causes us to be off a little bit.
So there's like no like exact answer. So as long as like everything's like pretty much like close to what it should be.
Yes.
Like 61.4.
If you left it all like that, I'd be fine.
Okay.
I'd be fine. As long as you're aware that sometimes the rounding doesn't come out and your circle should always add up to 100. Yeah. I bet you if we rounded those to whole numbers, the whole numbers would come out a little bit better. All right. So now, and if you want to put whole numbers on your circle graph, all right, so if you want to round them to whole numbers, that will be fine too. I'll be okay with that. As long as your rounding is correct. Let's see if this worked out better. Okay, so this works out to be 100. So if you want to round to a whole number, it would look better on your circle graph. How do I get those numbers onto my circle graph? Which one would you like to start with? the biggest. So again, remember, if you section this by quarters, each one is how much percent? 25. So Chris said, let's go for the biggest. So 61 brings me past the 50 and 10 more. Just eyeball this guy. If this is 25, half of it is like 12 and a half, right? So here's like 12 and a half. I need to be a little bit less. So right about here. So this part, and don't forget to put this on here, at home, 61%. If you use 10, you have 15 left, right? For that 25. What would you like to do next? Next biggest, which would be 13. So if this is 15, my 13 is just a little bit less. So this is my 13%, and this is not sure. So I use 13 and 10, 23. I have 2% left in here. So if I'm going to go to 11, I got a 10, and I really just need 9. So somewhere about there, I think looks like 11%. And that's a friend's house. Hopefully yours comes out a little better looking than this. And then what do we have? We have a 10% and we have a 5. Which should be bigger, a 10 or a 5? 10. So I'm just going to make it so that my 5 looks a little smaller. My 10 looks a little bit bigger than my 11. So maybe I just want to put it here. Make this a 10. And this was elsewhere. And this 5%, if you can't fit it, draw a little arrow and say a restaurant or bar. If you'd rather start with the 61 and make it go this way, that's fine too. Whichever way you like to do it. What I don't want to see is this 5% to be bigger than 10%. Kind of just eyeball it. My 11, my 13, my 10s, they kind of look in the same area. I want to make sure my 61 covers more than half. And it does. I'm not going to sit there and measure. I'm going to look at this and say fine. My 13, my 11, my 10. My 13 looks a little bit larger than my 11. My 10 looks almost like my 13, but we're in the ballpark. Good. If you like to use angles, then take this measurement and multiply it by 360. Then each quadrant that you do is 90 degrees. You still have to put your percentages on there. So, I mean, if you like angles, that's fine with me. Are we good with this? Okay, let's now flip this around and make this a Pareto graph. Let's make it a Pareto. What do we know about a Pareto graph? It's in order from highest to lowest. Is it a line or a bar? A bar. Do the bars touch? Nope. The bars have gaps. The x-axis is my x-axis. What level of measurement is my x-axis? Nominal. So I would again give it a title. Places to be at the stroke of midnight. Okay. And I would make my graph. I'm just trying to fit these all on here so that you can see them all together. Usually this has a, move the page down. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I didn't go too far down. So I'm going to put my highest to my lowest. What's my highest bar? My highest amount. At home. So this guy is going to say at home. Then what? Not sure. Then, friend's house. Then, elsewhere. And last, restaurant or bar. I need to label my x-axis. What kind of things are these? Places. Ah, I'll just call it places. And now my y-axis is my frequency. How high do I need to go on my y-axis? What's my highest bar can be? 620. So I need to go a little bit above the 600, right? So here I am at 0, so maybe I can do 100s right now. Maybe not. And a little bit more than the 600. Just make your bar. At home, we are 620. A little bit above the 600. Leave a gap. At my friend's house, I am 110. So I'm a little bit above the 100. Oh, sorry, this was my not short. I was a little bit 130, right? Then I'm 110 at my friend's house. Then I'm 100, a little bit less than that. And then on the 50. So in that Pareto chart, really stands out, doesn't it? Really stands out where most people are going to be, at home. Make sure you have gaps. Make sure you label everything. Yes.
Y-axis gets labeled as frequency.
You can just call it frequency.
Okay.
But after you write down your x-axis, just make sure you give it a label. And those are all places to be. Good? This is why a lot of times you'll see the amounts written on top. Because going by 100, I really can't tell what these are. So a lot of times you'll see them write the amounts on the top. This way there's no question. Between 100 and 200 is a lot of numbers, right? Are we comfortable with this? Okay, try number 16. Try number 16. So your weighted mean is going to say, take each one, make sure your percentages always add up to 100, multiply them across, add them down. Good? Okay. Do you think you'll see that tomorrow on the test?
Yes, so.
Sure you will. Okay, take a look at number 21. Let's see if I can grab this graph up here. All right, let's drop down to 21. Here's a graph. Looking at this graph, which measure of central tendency would you use to represent the center of your data? Why? Because it has an outlier. Where's your outlier? It's to the left. Where's your tail then? Tail is to the left. The tail is to the left. So it's skewed left. So when something has a left skew, that means the mean is to the left of the median. I don't care what number it is. It just knows that it's thrown off. Those little outliers drag that down. This is like your test scores. You do great over here, and then you have one or two little bad ones. So you say, oh no, that killed my average. It brought my average down. So I look at your scores and I say, well, yeah, the true middle of your data really is your median. It's really in the 80s and 90s. But that little bad test score holds your mean down. So in this case, you're going to use your median to be the true measure of central tendency. Okay. The one on the right, Stephen, which measure of central tendency would you use to represent the middle of your data, center of your data? The mean? Okay. What's happening over here? Is that where your tail is? It's gone down a little bit, right? So there's the tail. So if you have a tail, it's like a dinosaur. Here's a dinosaur and it has a little tail off to the side. You are skewed to the right. That means your mean is to the right of your median. So it moved off the center of your data. So in this case, you're going to use a median. And what kind of graph would I use a mean? A symmetrical graph. Good. A graph that's symmetrical, where your bars go like this, and the tallest bars are up there, somehow like this. So in the middle is all three, your mean, your median, and your mode. Also a uniform graph. If I have a uniform graph, my mean and my median are smack in the middle. I have no mode, but my mean and my median are smack in the middle. They're together. So in those situations, I would use the mean. If I have a skew anywhere, remember, follow the tail. It's kind of like the dinosaur tail. And what happens as you draw to the right or draw to the left, that's where your mean is going. It just moved off the center of your data. And again, think about your grades. First thing you say is, oh, could you please drop my lowest grade? Because that skewed your mean down there. Or next time say to your teacher, could you use the median instead of my mean? Okay. Good? Maybe they'll like that better. Okay. Do you guys have any other questions? Basically, that's what you're looking at. Can everybody do, let me see if there's one here. Hang on. I don't think I have one here. Okay, so if I gave you a table, and your table went like this, how do you put this in your L1?
Yeah, the average of 2 on the left.
Yeah, you gotta take the midpoint. Your average of your 2 on the left is your midpoint. What's the class width for this table? 10. Class width goes from the first entry to the second entry, 10. It does go from 0 to 9. Count them on your fingers. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10. When we do it that way, you have to subtract and add 1. So find your class width this way. Find your average. This is 4.5. So 4.5, add 10, all the way down. Just use your class width. This is going to go in your L1. This is going to go in your L2. Okay? Okay. Good with this? Questions at all? Yes?
This is about like Edmona, right? Because I wasn't here this day, so I don't know.
Yeah. All you have to do for a frequency like that is, if you went to your L1 table, you wouldn't be able to enter that in with an interval. So you know how on our graphs we use the midpoint, and it represents the bar? We use the midpoints to put in for your L1. That's the only difference. So when you get a median, and your median is, you'll have to just figure what interval it falls in. If your median, let's say, is 12.5, then you're going to tell me it's from the 10 to 19 interval. That's all. Good? I really don't see anything else on that test that would be troubling.